This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to lockdown coverage, Week 5 in the National Football League. Dallas Cowboys, Cincinnati Bengals. This was supposed to be the test. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, rookie running back, rookie quarterback in the backfield, lighting it up the last 3 weeks, leading the Cowboys to a 3-1 record. This was supposed to be the test. Same thing we said about Carson Wentz 2 weeks ago versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, the big bad AFC North. Watch out, rookies. Here they come. Dallas smoked those boys, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But before we get to all of that, welcome to the Louie Tee Network. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2016 and beyond. Also, I'm on Twitter. At In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Also, I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Go ahead and give me a like there. Give me that thumbs up. And also, follow me on Twitter. And of course, above all else, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Louie Tee Network. All right, let's jump into this breakdown quickly. And you know how this goes. I don't handle ass whoopings the same way I do competitive football games. There's no likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe for this. Don't let the score fool you. This was 28-0. I was begging. I was pleading. I started a petition on Twitter for CBS to get me out of there. I needed something more competitive, man. I needed Raiders and Chargers. I needed Bills and Rams. Give me something else to chew on, man. I don't want to watch this. This was over. They said, nah, you're going to have to stick this one out, man. I said, all right, fair enough, whatever. So, this is one of those what I saw from afar. You know how I like to do the ass whoopings, man. I treat them a little different. So, what did I see from afar, man? What I saw from afar. So, what did I see from afar? First, let's start with the victors. To the victors, go the spoils. The Cowboys moved to 4-1 after this win. And because of the loss by the Philadelphia Eagles, they go to first place in this division by half a game. So the Cowboys continue to play hot football, winners of 4 straight. And it's another dominant performance. And I actually hurt my shoulder patting myself on the back for this one because if you remember, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, and if you haven't, it's in the archives. You can go ahead and pull it up. But when I said last December that if the Cowboys are in a position in the top 5 of the draft, which they ultimately ended up being in the top 5 at the 4th pick in the draft, I said, look, you have to draft Ezekiel Elliott. You just have to. And I know the Cowboys could use defensive help, and they can use this, and they can use that. You got to take a guy that can change the game. We know how good this offensive line is. You put that kind of back behind that offensive line, and I don't really give a damn who's out there on defense. I really don't care who's at quarterback. Now, you still need good quarterback play, and Dak Prescott has been that, and we'll get to him in a second. But you need, when you got that kind of line, you got to be able to exploit them. You got to be able to use these guys and dominate up front and have those runs that last year, Darren McFadden broke some big runs. They didn't go to the crib. He didn't get in the end zone. Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the league in rushing touchdowns a season ago. You know why that is? Because even though the offensive line was dynamic, there wasn't a dynamic back behind them to capitalize and make all of those huge gaping holes pay off. Now you got a dude like we saw on that huge 75-yard run or so that if you give him a crease, it could be peace. And he's off to the crib, off to the races. And it was a huge, huge win by this Cowboys team. And it wasn't just a huge win. It was domination. And I talk about this all the time, how confidence begets winning, winning begets confidence. If you can pull this thing off, it becomes a vicious and beautiful cycle, okay? You win games, you start to become confident. You expect to win games. You continue to win games, and now you become even more confident, and it just continues to repeat itself. see the Carolina Panthers of 2015 if you want to know how this cycle works. And so I'm not saying the Cowboys are that, but they're starting to believe. And again, as the weeks pass and these wins continue to stack up like bricks, the question becomes, is Tony Romo a guy that you even want to put back into the lineup? Now, we're still a few more weeks away, and there's still some tough games on this schedule that will ultimately decide that situation before we even get to the point where he's healthy enough to go. But I'm telling you right now, if it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. Dak Prescott brings the element of a quarterback being able to get outside the pocket. And the thing that you don't really have to worry about with this kid is him turning the football over. I've been so impressed with his poise. And really, I haven't seen a team yet get consistent pressure on him. Give some credit to this Cowboys offensive line for keeping him relatively clean. But even when there is a little bit of duress, he does a great job of getting out of the pocket and using his legs to either escape, pick up some yardage, or escape by time to get the football down the field. He doesn't ever seem to be in a rush. There's a difference between being in a rush and being someone that can do things when everything around you is sort of helter-skelter. He never seems to be flustered. He never seems to be disheveled. He always seems to be cool, calm, and collected in the pocket. And the thing that has really impressed me is he always seems to find the right guy on the play. They come after him with some pressure. He knows where the pressure is coming from, knows where the hot is, and he hits those guys, it seems like, on every third down, whether it's Cole Beasley or it's Terrence Williams. And T. Will was huge in this game. I'll talk about him in a second. Or it's Jason Witten. He's finding the right guy to get the football to. He's not turning it over, and that's something you can't say about Tony Romo. For as good as Tony Romo is, there's usually a couple of boneheaded decisions that can make or break a football game in there. With Dak Prescott, you're not getting those. Made his first turnover today on a fumble. Great play by Carlos Dunlap to get that football out. But if he didn't, I think there would have been another touchdown. Witten was open on the play. So this is a guy in Dak Prescott that has just relished in this role. And to me, if he continues to play this way and you continue to see the Cowboys win ball games, how can you take this man from under center? It just doesn't make sense to me. And Terrence Williams is a guy that I think he needed this stretch without Dez Bryant. He needed Dez Bryant to sit down, to give him some more touches, to get him more involved in his offense, because when Bryant comes back, then you have a situation where not only Cole Beasley, who has been stellar to start this season off, is continuing to roll, got his first touchdown grab of the season in this game, but you now have a situation where you got Dez, you've got Cole, and now here comes T. Will, who I think is the X factor out there at the receiver position. If you can get him to start getting some things going, 5 catches, over 70 yards in this game, if you can continue to get him to progress in this offense, all of a sudden now the Cowboys offensively are rolling, because we know what you're getting out of Jason Witten every week. You know what you're getting out of the backfield with Double E Ezekiel Elliott. And now all of a sudden, if you can get something out of the X, and Dez, Cole Beasley is tearing it up in the slot, and all of a sudden now Terrence Williams is contributing. This is a dangerous, dangerous Cowboys offense, to say the least. Now let's talk about the defense. And I still got my doubts about this Cowboys defense, but they went out and they pitched a shutout for damn near 3 quarters in this ball game. Or matter of fact, it was 3 quarters. The Cincinnati Bengals didn't get on the scoreboard till the 4th quarter. This defense has been unheralded, hasn't been given a lot of credit. I'm not too sure I'm that high on this defense, but much like 2014, we expected this defense to be horrible, and because of how good they've been offensively, because the defense isn't being put in a lot of precarious situations with turnovers and short fields and them having to defend those sudden change of possession situations, they've been able to just bend but not break. And in this particular game, that's what happened. Cincinnati was able to move the football early in this game, get past midfield, but right when they would pass that midfield stripe, that's when they would tighten up defensively, force them to make a tough decision. And Marvin Lewis was scared to roll the dice. Scared money don't make money. You know the rules to the game, then play. You want to punt on 4th and 1 and 4th and 2 and 4th and 3. Those boys across the field, they scoring touchdowns. You want to keep punting on 4th and short? Be my guest. But it's going to come back to bite you because your defense can't get off the field. And so credit that Cowboys defense for bending but not breaking. But I'm still not quite sold on this defense. I still think they're the weakness of this football team. But when you're winning football games, it's all good, man. And if they can continue to do the things they've done offensively over the last month with this football team, the defense will continue to be solid enough to get them victories moving forward. Let's get to the Bengals in this game quickly. Very disappointing performance. I talked about this team and how I felt like they didn't have the depth necessary to be the team that they were in the past, in the last 3 years or so, when they've been one of the perennial powerhouses in the AFC and one of the best teams in the AFC North division. I just don't like what I'm seeing from them. And I told you, I didn't think the depth this offseason, I really didn't like their offseason as a whole. This team drafts very well. I didn't think this was one of their best drafts. And because of all the injuries in the offseason, and then you got a guy like Tyler Eifert, who is such a huge part of this offense, not available. You see the depth at tight end, still have Tyler Kroft, still have C.J. Uzomah, but it's just not enough out there. The receiver position is lacking. You saw what the Cowboys' main focus was, which should be any team's main focus when playing Cincinnati. Take away A.J. Green. It's A.J. Green. Take him away. Make the rest of those dudes beat you. And if they do, you tip your cap to them. But most likely they're not going to be able to. And you saw that again today. Tyler Boyd continuing to struggle at the receiver position as a rookie. They need to find ways to get him more involved. Right now, he just doesn't seem comfortable out on the football field. They're not getting. It was good to see Brandon LaFell get 2 touchdowns in this ball game. Maybe that will jumpstart him and make him a bigger factor in this Cincinnati Bengals offense. But right now, they're struggling, all the Bengals. And it's not just an offensive thing. How about the defense not being able to get stops in the first half? The Cowboys' first 3 possessions right down the field for touchdowns. The Cowboys scoring touchdowns when they get the football. The first possession of the third quarter for the Cowboys, a huge Ezekiel Elliott run for a touchdown to make it 28-0 in this game. The Cincinnati Bengals defense in this game was dreadful. And I really don't know what the explanation is. And now you got a tough one coming up against the New England Patriots next week. They got Brady back. They're playing confident football. Good luck with that one. And then after that, you got to go to London to take on a Washington Redskins team that has won 3 in a row and are a really confident group right now. So right now for the Cincinnati Bengals, their season is at a crossroads. What are you going to do? You can either stand up and prove that you are the team that you said you were before this season was to commence, or you can go ahead and pack your season up, because these next 2 ball games are going to go a long way in determining the fate of this Cincinnati Bengals team moving forward. You're 2-3 on the season. If you don't go to Foxborough and win, which is a huge, huge and tough task to ask of any team, let alone a team that is struggling right now on both sides of the football, you could argue, that's going to be tough. That could drop you to 2-4. If you go there and win, that could be a season-changing, defining victory there to get you back to 500 and right the ship. You drop that game, and depending on the way and the fashion that happens, you could be reeling going over to London, and that could be a really tough matchup against a Redskins team that is playing some solid football right now. So the Cincinnati Bengals, they got a lot of questions. What was up with Jeremy Hill not getting a lot of touches in this ball game? And then he hurts himself. A lot of Giovanni Bernard early in this ball game. Didn't see much of him, Jeremy Hill early in this ball game, which was quite a surprise. But I like my Giovanni Bernard anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I like him to touch it a little bit more anyhow, but just not a good game overall for Cincinnati. Offensively, not able to finish off drives, missed a field goal. It was a rough game. I thought Alex Erickson made some poor decisions to bring the football out, which didn't help field position early in the game when you were struggling. I just thought it was a poor game all around by the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought Marvin Lewis played tentative, punted in Dallas territory too many times. I thought that there were some situations where, look, your defense needs help. You need to go for it on 4th and 3. You need to go for it on 4th and 1. You need to go for it on 4th and 2. And he just wasn't willing to do that. He wanted to play the field position game, which is fine if your defense is getting stops. But when they're not and they're getting gashed and the other team is scoring touchdowns, and you see what type of ball game this is going to be, you need to then make the adjustment and the decision that this is 4-down territory from here on out. If we don't get this, we're going for it on 4th down until we get into comfortable field goal range to get some points on the scoreboard. Marvin Lewis reluctant to do that. Cowboys made him pay in this game with touchdowns and put the Cincinnati Bengals on their heels early and often in this ball game. Let's get to some of your comments in this ball game. Uh, let's see. Hirsch Patel says, "What did I tell you, man? I did expect them to run close. How to they ran? Oh, okay. He says I did expect them to be similar to what they were in 2014. Hopefully they can keep it up. Cowboys look eerily similar to the team that won 12 games in 20. Was it 12 or 13 in 2014 and was dominant in the NFC East? They look eerily similar to that. The defense we thought was going to be bad, much like we did in 2014. They've been solid. The running game is dominant. They were dominant in 2014. They're dominating time of possession. And because of that and not turning the football over, which Tony Romo didn't do in 2014, this team is off to a 4-1 start. Andrew Kim says, who has a better shot for the playoffs, Bengals or Ravens? I know they both lost Sunday. I assume the Steelers are still on top. Steelers are definitely going to win this division. That's what I had predicted before the season started. Looking at the two teams, I'd like to think that the Bengals, to me, are still better than the Ravens are, but the Ravens do something a little bit more consistently that the Bengals don't do, and that's play defense. And so I think the Ravens have an outside shot if they can find a way to get the offense to pick up. But I just don't know if the Ravens are capable of that right now. We'll see. We'll find out. But right now, Cincinnati's struggling on both sides of the football. I wasn't impressed with them against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a bad team, as you saw today, them losing at home to Tennessee. Should have lost at home to Cleveland. They dominated a bad football team, but they kicked 5 field goals in that game. And maybe Tyler Eifert coming back jumpstarts this offense and they start scoring points and they look better offensively. But right now, I don't want to hear many excuses. I just want to see results. And Cincinnati isn't really doing that for me right now. And the defense looked awful in this game. So I'd have to go with the Ravens right now, even though I still think Cincinnati's a better football team overall than the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens, they're going to have a softer schedule. I think the Ravens do something that will allow them to have chances at the end of ball games, and that's play defense. Whereas Cincinnati, I'm not sure about their defense right now. I'm just not confident in their defense's ability to shut teams down that are prolific offensively, like you saw in this game versus Dallas. I thought the Jets moved the football on them in week 1. They've had struggles. The Steelers in that sloppy football game, I thought they did some good things against that Bengals defense. I haven't been ultra impressed with Cincinnati this season, even in some of their victories. Captain Spartan 04 says, Bengals need to admit it. They miss Hugh Jackson. Meanwhile, Hugh is actually making the Browns look like an NFL team. Anyone else would make them look like a high school football team. They miss Hugh Jackson. They miss a number of things. They miss Marvin Jones, okay? They downplayed his role in this offense. They miss Reggie Nelson at the safety position. They miss guys that made a difference on this football team last year. I just thought it was a really suspect offseason. I thought they somewhat underestimated the role of some of those players that they allowed to walk and overvalued some of the guys that they thought they had waiting in the wings that would be able to step up, and it just hasn't happened thus far in 2016. That's going to do it for Cowboys and Bengals. Cowboys get the win 28-14, go to 4-1, and also take the lead in the NFC East division at 4-1. Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals drop this football game, dropped to below 500 at 2-3 on the season, and looked very sloppy in the process in doing so, only scoring 14 points. In garbage time of this ball game, they were once down 28-0 at one point in this game. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on Lockdown Coverage. Come back and join your man Louie T for Sunday Night Football Overtime. Green Bay Packers at home at Lambeau, waiting on the struggling New York Football Giants. It should be fun. I will see you then. Have a good one. And remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. I will see you tonight after Sunday Night Football.